Okay, here's something you don't see every day. We've got an 8-string Ibanez. This thing is great. Has 2 lower strings, a B and an F sharp. This is the B, this is the F sharp. The rest of the guitar from here on out is tuned standard. So basic setup on this one. We're just going to restring it, intonate it, make any adjustments to the neck. This fretboard is actually dry, so we're going to oil that up and get the fretboard back to where it should be, because when they dry out it's no good. The frets can pop out. Rosewood, which is what this board is like ebony. It's naturally oily wood. In fact, it's so oily when they glue the boards, the rosewood board, down to the neck itself, they have to soak it, usually in naphtha or something, to draw the oil out so that the glue will actually stick. Okay, this fretboard is pretty dry, so what we're going to do is going to put just a little bit of fretboard finishing oil on it with the rag, and you're going to see the luster come right back to the board. I don't know if you can notice that. Let's take a good look. Okay, here's what it looks like now that I put the oil back on it, and that's what it's like without the oil. It's very dry. It's soaking it right in. So I might have to even give this 2 coats to get the board back. But you always want to make sure that rosewood and ebony, they have a healthy amount of oil on the board, not over the top. Then it gets, too oily. But you really have to make sure the board stays moist, because it'll dry, and when it dries it shrinks, and when it shrinks the frets become loose and they pop out. And these are very wide frets because the neck is so wide, because it's an 8-string. So you have a lot of fret there. Okay, we're going to let that sit for about 20 minutes. Let it soak into the board good. I gave it 2 coats. Put another little bit down here. Now it's got 2 coats down here. I gave 2 coats to the top. And we're going to let that dry thoroughly till it soaks right into the wood. Then we'll come along with a clean rag like that and buff it all out. And we'll buff the frets too. Get the frets back to a nice shine. The frets are in great shape. There's not a lot of wear. Usually guys that play this type of guitar don't really bend and push the strings a lot like rock and blues players do, so you don't get a lot of fret wear on a guitar like this. Okay, some of these pieces here on the bridge have a little bit of rust on them, and what I like to use to get that off, that's from the sweat, of playing and the perspiration, is a little navel jelly, which you can actually get at Home Depot. The rest of the bridge is fine. It's just a few of them up here. This will take the rust right off. And it doesn't hurt the rest of the bridge. And in fact, some of the other top pieces at the locking section up at the nut of the guitar. So you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually, the rust is coming right off, and there's some really good paint underneath there. You won't even be able to tell once this is done. And I've already buffed out the rest of the bridge, and I blew it out, so compressed air, and cleaned it, so we should be able to make all the fine adjustments that we have to make when we go to intonate it. So that's it. I'm just putting this navel jelly on with a little, like a Q-tip. It's a cleaning swab actually. They're stronger than Q-tips. Let that soak a little bit, then we'll buff it out. Wipe it off, then buff it out. And that gets rid of the rust quite nicely. Okay, I'm just coming along with a clean swab, buffing it out. I'm going to hold this in place with an Allen wrench, the little adjusting screw here. Otherwise it spins uncontrollably while I'm trying to do this. So I want to twist it just like that. I'm twisting it with this hand. Just checking the camera, making sure you can see it. Okay, and then I'm just getting a clean swab and I'm wiping down the adjusting screw, getting it off the threads. This is good. Okay, it's been 20 minutes, and this oil is soaked into the board about as much as it's going to. Now what I'm going to do is come along and just wipe the excess off. And that gets the board looking really good. Now we're going to buff the frets out. I always like to go the extra mile and buff the frets out like this when they see that they need it. It doesn't need any fret work, it doesn't need any leveling or recrowning, but it really needs to be cleaned up. And I think it's important, you know, because it just all adds to the feel of the guitar when you're playing it. And if it just, the strings feel better when you're, you know, bending them a little bit. They feel a little smoother under the fret. And the guitar just looks a lot nicer too, you know. Okay, we got those frets back. They're all shiny, right on down till the end. And the board really looks good. The luster's back in the board, it feels good. It's well oiled. And those frets really shine, they look good, and they're going to feel good too. Okay, there's the bridge. It's like a Floyd Rose. There's no whammy bar, there are no springs on the guitar. It's solid, but you can adjust it like a Floyd Rose. And it's all strung up. The neck looks great. It's all buffed out. The frets are all buffed. The neck's all oiled. There's where the locking heads go to screw the strings down after strings have settled out and everything is in tune, just like a Floyd Rose. So we can lock them up there, and then all the tuning is done down here with these fine adjusters. Okay, the neck is going to need some adjusting. It's bowing up too much from all the tension on the strings. I don't know when the last time it was adjusted. But what we're going to do is we're just going to apply a little pressure to the truss rod and bring the neck back down, and then check the action again, make sure it's okay, and make sure we have enough relief from the 14th fret up to the 1st fret as well. Right now it's kind of high. Okay, we're going through the final stages of intonating the guitar. This G string is out. I just did the E and the B. If you know anything about a Floyd Rose type bridge, you'll know that these saddles slide back and forth. The fine tuners are back here along the back, and the adjustment for the location of the string position is right underneath here with the little hex screw. So what I do is I come along in here with this little wrench, if you can see it, and I put it in the hex screw, and then I apply some pressure with this Allen wrench and holding it so I can push the little saddle back and forth. Because what happens with this is that even though I've loosened the string, there's still a little bit of tension, and so the saddle, as soon as I take a little bit of pressure off this little hex nut here, the saddle is going to shoot up this way. So I want to counteract that by just putting this nice hex wrench, just the right size, just to hold it. Okay, the G string was fine. We're going down to the B string now. I did the other strings. They were all out a little bit, so I'm going to loosen up the B, and it has to go back a little bit to be intonated. So I have to loosen it up and give an approximation of how far I think it should go. This looks about right. I do this based on experience from just setting them all this time. I can make an approximation as to how far I should move the saddle. And of course now we're going to check it with the strobe tuner. Okay, now it's time to put these saddles back on. I've cleaned all of these little pieces with Naval Jelly. They came out great. Nice black finishes back on it. Just going to put these on by hand. It's the finishing touch on the guitar. Once these go back on, you know everything's intonated and tuned up. And then you do all the tuning, not up here with the machine heads, but down at the other end of the bridge, like you would a Floyd Rose. Okay, here's the guitar. All finished. Nice looking guitar too. Try and pull away. Let me show you the back too. Neck is beautiful. Nice neck. Adjusted properly, really straight. Here's the back of it. There's the volute. Come on down. Just the bolts. Really nice neck. Turn it around. Frets came out great. There's Keith Moon. Great drummer. And that's it. We're all finished. Give Kevin a call and have him pick up his guitar.